She sat alone at the white tablecloth restaurant, fingers trembling around a $5 bill, mascara threatening to streak down her cheeks. The waiter had passed by 3 times already, each glance heavier with pity than the last. Clara Moretti hadn't wanted to come. The blind date had been her cousin's idea. "You need to get back out there," Sophia had insisted, her voice dripping with that particular brand of concern that felt more like judgment. So Clara had said yes. She'd pulled her nicest dress from the back of her closet, the navy one that didn't scream broke but didn't lie about it either. She'd walked 40 minutes in heels that pinched her toes because taking the bus would have eaten into grocery money. And for what? Her phone buzzed against the table. Another message from Darren, the man who was supposed to be sitting across from her right now. The man her family had been whispering about for weeks, as if he were some kind of salvation. "Can't make it. Emergency came up. Here's something for the trouble." The Venmo notification blinked beneath it. $5. $5. Not even enough to cover the bread basket she'd nervously picked it while waiting. Clara's throat tightened. Around her, the restaurant hummed with life. Couples leaning close over candlelight. Laughter floating from a table near the window. The soft clink of champagne glasses celebrating moments she'd probably never have. She was 28 years old and completely invisible. Have you ever been humiliated so deeply you swore you'd never show your face again? That's where Clara was, drowning in a crowded room, wondering if she should just leave the $5 on the table and walk out with whatever dignity she had left. But then the waiter appeared, his smile tight and professional. "Miss, will anyone be joining you this evening?" The question landed like a slap. Clara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. What could she possibly say? "She's with me." The voice came from behind her, low, steady, utterly confident. Clara turned, and the breath caught in her chest. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair swept back and a jaw that looked carved from stone. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind that cost more than her rent. But it wasn't his looks that stopped her. It was the way he moved, like he owned not just the room, but the air inside it. The man slid into the seat across from her without asking. He didn't smile, didn't apologize for the intrusion. He just looked at her with eyes the color of smoke and said, "You've been sitting here alone for 30 minutes. That's unacceptable." Clara blinked. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Not yet." He gestured to the waiter, who suddenly looked nervous. "Bring us the tasting menu and a bottle of the Burlo." "Sir, I'm aware of what it costs." His tone wasn't harsh, just final. The waiter vanished. Clara stared at this stranger, her heart doing something chaotic in her chest. Part of her wanted to stand up and leave. This was insane. You didn't just let random men sit down and take over your disaster of an evening. But another part of her, the part that had been beaten down by unpaid bills and family disappointment and $5 pity payments, wanted to stay, just to see what happened next. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He studied her for a long moment, like he was reading a story written across her face. "Because someone should have done it a long time ago." Clara didn't understand. Couldn't understand. "I don't even know your name." "Luciano Varelli." He said it the way other people might say king or God. "And you're Clara Moretti. I know exactly who you are." Her stomach dropped. "How do you?" "The man who stood you up tonight." Luciano's expression didn't change, but something dark flickered behind his eyes. "Darren Chun. Trust fund kid playing businessman with his father's money. Dating your cousin Alora now, isn't he?" Clara's face went hot. Of course. Of course this stranger knew. Probably the whole city knew. Poor Clara Moretti, dumped for her own cousin, crawling back into the dating scene only to be humiliated again. "I should go." She started to stand, but his hand moved across the table, not grabbing her, just resting near hers. A suggestion, not a command. "Stay," Luciano said quietly. "One meal. No expectations. No conditions. Just let someone treat you the way you should have been treated all along." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Clara looked at him, really looked. There was something dangerous in his calm. Something that made her pulse race for reasons she couldn't quite name. She should walk away. Every rational part of her brain screamed to walk away. But then she thought about the $5 still sitting on the table. About Darren's smirking face, about Alora's wedding photos that would probably flood social media in a few months. One meal, Clara heard herself say. Luciano's lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close. That's all I'm asking. The food came. Course after course of things Clara had only seen in magazines. They talked, or rather, he asked questions and she answered, slowly forgetting why she'd been so afraid. He was charming when he wanted to be, dangerous when he didn't. And underneath it all, there was something wounded, something that recognized the hurt in her because he'd carried his own. By the time dessert arrived, Clara had almost convinced herself this was normal. That beautiful, powerful men swooped in to rescue women at restaurants all the time. Then Luciano leaned forward, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. I'm going to tell you something, Clara, and I need you to listen carefully. Her pulse jumped. Okay. The people who hurt you, Darren, Alora, all of them, they're going to pay for what they've done. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon. His eyes held hers, unblinking. And you're going to help me make it happen. What? I don't. From now on, Luciano said, each word deliberate and final. You're mine. Would you trust a stranger who appeared out of nowhere with an offer like that? Or would you run? Clara's apartment looked smaller when she got home that night. The same cracked ceiling, the same pile of unopened envelopes on the kitchen counter, bills she'd been avoiding for 3 weeks now. The same life she'd been trying to escape, except nothing felt the same anymore. She dropped her purse on the couch and pulled out the business card Luciano had pressed in her palm before she left the restaurant. Heavy cardstock, no company name, just a phone number embossed in gold and 2 words beneath it, call me. You're mine. Those words had been echoing in her head for the past hour. What did that even mean? She tried to ask him, but he just smiled, that dangerous almost smile, and told her she'd understand soon enough. Clara tossed the card onto the counter and tried to pretend her hands weren't shaking. Her phone buzzed. A text from her Aunt Maria. Heard about the date. You okay, honey? Which meant everyone knew. By tomorrow morning, the whole family would be whispering about poor Clara and her $5 disaster. She could already hear them. The pitying looks, the concerned suggestions that maybe she should try harder, be more grateful, lower her standards. She turned off her phone. Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, it was full of smoke-colored eyes and questions she couldn't answer. Morning arrived with a knock on her door. 3 sharp raps that made her jump. Clara shuffled over in her bathrobe, expecting her landlord or maybe another certified letter about her student loans. Instead, she found flowers. 2 dozen white roses arranged in a crystal vase, so expensive it probably cost more than her security deposit. The delivery guy was already walking away, whistling like this happened every day. Clara carried them inside, her heart doing that chaotic thing again. There was a card tucked between the stems. She opened it with trembling fingers. You're safe now. No signature. But she knew. That's when her laptop pinged. A news alert she'd set up weeks ago out of pure spite. She'd been tracking Darren's family business, the Chun Development Corporation, hoping for some small piece of karma. Some tiny crack in their perfect empire. What she got was an earthquake. Federal investigators raid Chun Development offices. Fraud probe launched. Clara read the headline 3 times. Then 4. The article detailed years of financial misconduct, falsified loan applications, bribery, money laundering. The kind of crimes that didn't just get you fired. They got you prison time. Her phone rang before she could process it. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Hello. Good morning, Clara. Luciano's voice was warm honey over gravel. Did you get the flowers? Her mouth went dry. How did you know where I live? I know a lot of things. There was a pause, and she could almost see him leaning back in whatever expensive chair he was sitting in. Have you seen the news? About Darren's family? Yes, but that's just the beginning, he said quietly. By the end of the week, the Chun Empire will be ashes. Darren and your cousin Alora will have nothing. No money. No reputación. No future. Clara's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on her couch. You did this. I simply made sure the right people looked in the right places. The crimes were always there. The Chins thought they were untouchable. His voice dropped lower. They thought wrong. What? The word came out as a whisper. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Don't I? Another pause. Check your bank account, Clara. Her stomach twisted. What? Just check. She pulled up her banking app with shaking hands. The screen loaded. Her checking account, the one that had been sitting at $43 for the past 2 weeks, now showed a balance of $50,000. Clara nearly dropped her phone. What did you do? Her voice cracked. You can't just. Your student loans are paid off. Your rent is covered for the next year. The medical bills from your father's hospital stay last year? Gone. Luciano spoke like he was reading a grocery list. You don't owe anyone anything anymore. Tears burned Clara's eyes. Not happy tears. Confused, terrified tears. Why are you doing this? Because you deserve better than $5 and an empty table. His tone softened just slightly. Because I see what they did to you, Clara. The humiliation. The abandonment. And I'm going to make sure they understand what it costs to treat people like they're disposable. I never asked for this. No, he agreed. You didn't. But you're getting it anyway. Clara's mind raced. This was insane. You didn't just accept $50,000 from a stranger. You didn't let mysterious men pay your debts and destroy your enemies like some kind of vigilante fairy godfather. Except he'd already done it. And some horrible, broken part of her was grateful. What do you want from me? She asked finally. Right now? Nothing. Soon. He paused. I want you to trust me. I don't even know you. Then get to know me. Have dinner with me tomorrow night. My place. 7 o'clock. I'll send a car. And if I say no, then you say no. Luciano's voice held something that might have been amusement. But you won't. Claire wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he was wrong. That she wasn't some damsel who needed rescuing. That she could handle her own problems. But the words stuck in her throat. Because he was right. She wouldn't say no. Fine, Clara said. Tomorrow. 7. I'll be waiting. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed, darker, more intense. Oh, and Clara, the roses aren't the only thing I sent. What do you mean? Check your door. She walked over, pulse hammering, pulled it open. Sitting on her doormat was a small black box. Velvet. Expensive. She picked it up carefully, brought it inside, and opened it with Luciano still on the line. Inside was a key. Not a house key, not a car key. Something old, ornate, brass with intricate engravings. What is this? Clara breathed. Luciano's voice came through the phone, quiet and certain. The key to everything you've ever wanted to know about me. Bring it tomorrow night. Then he hung up. Clara stood in her tiny apartment, holding a mysterious key and a phone full of silence, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. Would you accept help from someone who terrified and fascinated you in equal measure? Or would you walk away while you still could? The car that arrived at 6:45 was not a car. It was a statement. Black Mercedes, windows tinted so dark they looked like oil slicks, a driver in a suit who opened the door without saying a word. Clara slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe and tried to remember how to breathe. She'd spent the past 24 hours telling herself she wouldn't go, that she'd text Luciano some polite excuse and return his money and pretend none of this ever happened. But she was wearing her second-best dress, and the key was burning a hole in her purse. The drive took 30 minutes, winding out of the city into hills Clara had only seen in magazines. The houses up here didn't have addresses. They had names, estates, compounds, the kind of places where people summered and wintered and never worried about words like eviction or minimum payment. When they finally stopped, Clara's breath caught. The Varelli estate wasn't a house. It was a palazzo. All stone and wrought iron and windows that glowed like captured stars. Gardens sprawled in every direction, manicured within an inch of their lives. A fountain burbled in the circular driveway, water dancing over marble angels. The driver opened her door. Clara stepped out on legs that felt like water. Miss Moretti, a woman in her 60s, appeared, gray hair pulled into a tight bun, expression neutral. Mr. Varelli is expecting you. This way. Clara followed her through massive doors into an entrance hall that could have swallowed her apartment whole. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a castle. Everything screamed money and power and danger. They walked through corridors lined with paintings, some she recognized from art history classes, others that looked old enough to be in museums. The woman finally stopped at a set of double doors, knocked once, and pushed them open. "Miss Moretti, sir." Then she disappeared, leaving Clara standing alone in what could only be called a study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A fireplace with flames crackling behind an iron screen. Windows overlooking gardens that stretched into darkness. And there, standing by the fire with a glass of something amber in his hand, was Luciano. He looked different here. More relaxed. More himself. His suit jacket was gone, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were all lean muscle and sharp angles. "Clara." He said her name like it was something precious. "You came. You didn't really give me a choice." She stayed by the door, clutching her purse. "You paid off my loans. You destroyed Darren's family. You sent me a mysterious key. What was I supposed to do? You could have said no." He took a sip of his drink, watching her over the rim of the glass. "You could have returned the money, blocked my number, gone on with your life. Could I?" Clara's voice came out sharper than she intended. "Because it feels like you've already decided what my life is going to look like." Something flickered across Luciano's face. Approval, maybe, or respect. "Fair enough. Come sit. We should talk." He gestured to a leather couch near the fire. Clara hesitated, then crossed the room and sat, keeping her purse in her lap like a shield. Luciano settled into the chair across from her, all casual power. "You have questions? Ask them." "Why me?" The words tumbled out. "You could help anyone. Destroy anyone. Why did you choose me?" "Because I was there that night. At the restaurant." His eyes never left hers. "I've been tracking the Chun family for months. Financial crimes. Connections to people I have history with. I was having dinner with an associate when I saw you walk in." Clara's chest tightened. "You were watching me?" "Not at first. But then I saw you wait. And wait. And when that text came through, when I saw your face," he stopped, jaw tightening. "I knew what was happening. I've seen that look before." "What look?" "Like you were disappearing. Like you'd accepted that being treated like nothing was all you deserved." Luciano leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "And I decided then that I wasn't going to let it stand." Clara didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to be angry at his presumption, at his control. But another part recognized something in his voice. Something raw and old and still bleeding. "The key," she said finally, pulling it from her purse. "What does it open?" Luciano's expression changed. "Closed off. Something I haven't shown anyone in 5 years." He stood and walked to the far wall, pressing his palm against what looked like solid paneling. It clicked, swung open. Behind it was a door, heavy, old, with a lock that matched the key in Clara's hand. "Open it," Luciano said quietly. Clara's hands shook as she crossed the room. The key slid in smoothly, turned with a sound like bones shifting. The door opened into darkness. Luciano reached past her, flipped a switch. Light flooded a small room, more of a shrine than anything else, and Clara's blood turned to ice. The walls were covered in photographs. Dozens of them. A woman with dark hair and darker eyes. Laughing in some, serious in others. She wore wedding white in one photo, a hospital gown in another. In every single image, she looked hauntingly, impossibly familiar. Because she looked like Clara, not identical, but close enough to make Clara's skin crawl. Same bone structure, same eyes, same way of holding her shoulders like she was trying to take up less space. Her name was Lucia, Luciano said from the doorway. His voice had gone flat. "Dead. My wife. She died 5 years ago because I failed to protect her from people who wanted to hurt me." Clara couldn't breathe. "I don't understand." The Chun family. Darren's father specifically. He had business dealings with people I was investigating. Dangerous people. When I got too close, they went after Lucia. His hands curled into fists. They made it look like an accident. A car crash on a rainy night. But I knew. I've always known. Why are you telling me this? Clara's voice barely worked. Luciano finally looked at her, and the grief in his eyes was so raw it hurt to witness. "Because when I saw you in that restaurant, abandoned, humiliated, forgotten, you reminded me of her, of the woman I loved and failed." He took a step closer, and I realized I'd been given a second chance. A second chance at what? At protecting someone. At making sure the people who destroy innocent lives finally pay for it. His voice dropped, and maybe finding redemption in the wreckage. Clara's heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. This was insane. He was using her. She was some kind of replacement, a proxy for the wife he couldn't save. She should run, should scream, should do anything except stand there staring at photographs of a dead woman who wore her face. But then Luciano said something that changed everything. You were never just a stranger, Clara. The moment I saw you, I knew. His eyes held hers, burning with something fierce and terrible and completely honest. I knew that if I didn't step in, if I didn't give you the tools to fight back, I'd be failing someone all over again. And I can't, his voice cracked. I can't live with that twice. Do two broken souls heal each other, or do they just create more wreckage? Stay with us to find out. Clara didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those photographs. Lucia's face. Her own face reflected in a dead woman's life. The weight of being someone's second chance pressed down on her chest until breathing felt like drowning. But she didn't run. Maybe she was stupid. Maybe she was desperate. Or maybe, and this was the part that scared her most, maybe she understood exactly what Luciano had meant. Because she'd failed people too. Failed herself. Spent years making herself smaller, quieter, more acceptable, until there was almost nothing left. On the 4th morning, her phone rang. Luciano, there's a car outside your building, he said without preamble. You start work today. Clara sat up in bed, heart racing. What work? The Virelli Foundation. We fund shelters, legal aid, job training programs for people rebuilding their lives. You'll be coordinating the Youth Mentorship Initiative. He paused. It's real work, Clara, not charity. You'll earn every dollar. I never said I wanted. I know, but you need something that's yours. Something they can't take away. His voice softened. Trust me on this. So she went. The foundation offices occupied 3 floors of a building downtown, all glass and steel, and people who moved with purpose. Her supervisor was a woman named Rachel, early 40s, sharp-eyed, kind without being soft. You'll be working with kids aging out of foster care, Rachel explained, walking Clara through a conference room covered in success stories. We help them find jobs, housing mentors, give them the support system they never had. Clara looked at the photographs pinned to the walls. Teenagers smiling in graduation gowns. Young adults holding keys to their first apartments. Kids who'd been abandoned and forgotten, now thriving. Kids like her. When do I start? Clara asked. Rachel smiled. You just did. The work was hard, emotionally exhausting. But for the first time in years, Clara felt like she mattered. Like she was building something instead of just surviving. 2 weeks in, Rachel mentioned the gala. It's our annual fundraiser, she explained over coffee. Black tie donors, the whole thing. Everyone on staff attends. You need to be there. Clara's stomach dropped. I don't really have anything to wear, too. Already handled. Rachel slid an envelope across the table. Mr. Virelli insisted. There's a stylist appointment scheduled for Friday. Of course there was. The gala was at the Meridian Hotel, the kind of place where valet parking cost more than Clara used to make in a week. She arrived in a dress that fit like it had been made for her, because it had. Deep emerald silk that made her skin glow and her confidence feel almost real. The ballroom was packed. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played something classical and expensive sounding. Clara stood near the back, trying to blend into the wallpaper when she saw them. Darren and Elora, her ex and her cousin, dressed like they still belonged in rooms like this. Like their family's empire wasn't crumbling. Like they hadn't abandoned Clara at a restaurant with $5 and a broken heart. Elora saw her first. Her eyes went wide, then narrow. She whispered something to Darren, who turned and went pale. Clara's first instinct was to run, but then she remembered the photographs. Remembered Lucia. Remembered that she'd spent too many years disappearing. She walked straight toward them. Clara. Elora's smile was poisonous. What a surprise. I didn't know they let anyone in here. They don't. Clara said evenly. I work for the foundation. This is my event. Darren's laugh was forced. Work? Since when do you work anywhere legitimate? Since about 2 weeks ago. Since the Varelli Foundation hired me to coordinate youth mentorship. Clara kept her voice level, but something hot and sharp coiled in her chest. How's your father's legal defense going? I heard the federal prosecutor is really building a case. Alora's face went red. That's none of your. Everything all right here? The voice came from behind Clara, low, commanding, familiar. She didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Luciano appeared beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. He wasn't touching her, but he might as well have been. His presence was a wall, a weapon, a warning. Mr. Varelli. Darren's voice cracked slightly. We were just leaving, I hope. Luciano's smile didn't reach his eyes. This event is for donors and staff. You're neither. We have every right to. Actually, you don't. Luciano tilted his head slightly, like he was examining something mildly interesting under a microscope. Your family's foundation credentials were revoked last week. Fraud concerns. I'm sure you understand. The color drained from Alora's face. Darren opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish drowning in air. You should go, Clara said softly, before security escorts you out. They went, stumbling over their pride and their expensive shoes, disappearing into the crowd like smoke. Clara's hands were shaking. Luciano noticed, of course. He always noticed. Come with me, he said quietly. He led her to a balcony overlooking the city. The air was cool, electric with early autumn. Inside, the gala continued without them. Music and laughter and the soft clink of success. You didn't have to do that, Clara said. Yes, I did. Luciano leaned against the railing, his profile sharp against the city lights. They needed to understand that you're not alone anymore, that you have protection. Is that what this is? Clara turned to face him. Protection or possession? His jaw tightened. What do you think? I think you saved me because I look like her. Because I'm some kind of stand-in for the woman you couldn't save. The words spilled out, months of confusion and fear and anger finally breaking free. I think you're using me to fix something that can't be fixed. Luciano was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. You're right. About some of it. Seeing you that night, it did remind me of Lucia. Of what I lost. What I failed to protect. Then why? But that's not why I helped you. He turned to look at her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. I helped you because you deserved it. Because someone needed to stand up and say that what they did to you, what they've done to so many people, wasn't acceptable. Lucia's memory might have been the spark, but you, Clara, you're the fire. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. I don't know if I can do this. Do what? Be whoever you need me to be. Carry this weight. Play this role in your revenge. Then don't. Luciano moved closer, and Clara felt the air shift between them. Be yourself. Fight for yourself. Let me handle the rest. And what happens when it's over? When Darren and Alora and everyone who hurt me has paid? What happens to us then? Luciano's smile was sad and sharp. I don't know, but I promise you this. By the time we're done, you won't need me anymore. You'll be strong enough to stand alone. What if I don't want to stand alone? The question hung between them, dangerous and electric. Luciano reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face with one hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Then we'll figure that out too. He dropped his hand and stepped back, the moment shattering like glass. Come on, he said, voice returning to something controlled. We should get back inside. Can't have people thinking I'm monopolizing our newest star employee. They walked back into the noise and light, and Clara felt something shift inside her. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. But as they re-entered the ballroom, she caught sight of Alora near the exit. Phone pressed to her ear, eyes locked on Clara with a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. And Clara realized this wasn't over. This was just beginning. If someone finally stood up for you after years of being invisible, would you trust them, or would you question their motives? The news broke on a Wednesday. Clara was at her desk, reviewing applications for the mentorship program, when Rachel appeared in her doorway looking pale. Conference room. Now, the entire staff was already assembled, murmuring in tight clusters. On the projection screen at the front of the room was a news article, and Clara's face was plastered across it. Varelli Foundation employee linked to federal fraud investigation. Her stomach dropped through the floor. "What is this?" she breathed. Rachel pulled her aside, voice low. "Someone leaked a story claiming you're connected to the Chun family fraud, that you helped them hide assets, that Luciano hired you as a cover to move illegal money through the foundation. That's insane. I had nothing to do with. I know that. We all know that." But Rachel glanced at the others, who were studiously not looking at Clara. "Perception matters. The board is meeting this afternoon to discuss your employment status." Clara felt the walls closing in. This was Alora. Had to be a last desperate attempt to drag Clara down with her. "I need to talk to Luciano," Clara said. "He's already on his way." Luciano arrived like a storm front, all sharp edges and controlled fury. He took one look at Clara's face and dismissed everyone else from the room with a single gesture. When they were alone, he turned to her. "This is Alora Chun. She's filed a sworn statement claiming you were involved in her family's money laundering operation, that you and I are working together to cover it up. But that's a lie. A complete." "I know it's a lie." Luciano's voice was ice. "But lies don't need to be true to do damage. By tomorrow morning, this will be everywhere. Every news outlet, every social media platform. Your name will be destroyed." Clara sank into a chair, head spinning. "So that's it? She wins." "No." The word was sharp as a knife. "She doesn't win. But we need to be smart about this." "How? How do we fight this?" Luciano was quiet for a long moment, jaw working. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me. I need you to release the full financial audit. Everything. Today." He paused. "Yes, I'm sure. Do it." He hung up and looked at Clara. "In about 3 hours, every news organization in the city will have access to 5 years of the Chun family's financial records. Bank statements, shell companies, bribery payments, all of it." Clara's eyes widened. "You've had that the whole time?" "I've had it since before I met you. I was waiting for the right moment." His expression darkened. "Alora just gave it to me. What does that mean for me?" "It means you're about to become the face of their downfall. The woman who stood up to corruption and won." He moved closer, and Clara felt the full weight of his attention. "But it also means you'll be under a microscope. Every part of your life examined. Are you ready for that?" Clara thought about the girl who'd sat in a restaurant with $5. The woman who'd spent years disappearing. The version of herself she'd been building these past few weeks. Stronger, angrier, more alive. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." "Good. Because we're about to burn their entire world down." The press conference happened that evening. Luciano stood beside Clara at a podium, cameras flashing like lightning, reporters shouting questions. He'd insisted she be there. Not hiding, not running. Present. He spoke for 20 minutes, laying out the evidence methodically. The fraud, the corruption, the lies. Then he did something Clara didn't expect. He called her forward. "Miss Moretti has been instrumental in this investigation," Luciano said, voice carrying across the room. "Her courage in coming forward with information about the Chun family's activities has helped ensure justice will be served." Clara's mouth went dry. She hadn't come forward with anything. She'd barely known about any of this until a few hours ago. But she understood what he was doing, creating a narrative, protecting her by making her the hero instead of the victim. She stepped up to the microphone, hands shaking. "I worked in administrative roles for several Chun family businesses before joining the Varelli Foundation," she said, reading from notes Luciano's lawyers had prepared. "During that time, I observed financial irregularities that concerned me. When I tried to report them, I was dismissed and blacklisted. Mr. Varelli gave me the opportunity to do the right thing. It was mostly lies, carefully constructed, legally vetted lies. But the reporters ate it up. By the next morning, Clara Moretti was everywhere. The whistleblower, the brave young woman who'd stood up to corruption. Profile pieces, interview requests, messages flooding her phone. And Darren and Alora, they were finished. Criminal charges filed, assets frozen, their father cooperating with prosecutors to save himself. The Chin Empire that had seemed so untouchable was rubble. Clara should have felt victorious, should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt hollow. She found Luciano in his study 3 days later, staring at the fire like it held answers he couldn't find anywhere else. "You used me," Clara said from the doorway. He didn't turn around. "Yes. You made me lie. Made me a symbol for your revenge." "Yes." "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why couldn't you just tell me the truth?" Luciano finally turned, and the exhaustion in his face startled her. "Because if I'd told you, you would have said no. You would have walked away." "And I couldn't," he stopped, jaw tight. "I couldn't let you walk away." "Why not?" "Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about Lucia. Stopped being about revenge. And started being about—" He cut himself off, shaking his head. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." Luciano crossed the room slowly, stopping just in front of her, close enough that Clara could see the shadows under his eyes, the lines of tension around his mouth. "I was using you," he said quietly. "In the beginning. You were right about that. But then I watched you work. Watched you help those kids at the foundation. Watched you become someone stronger and fiercer and more incredible than I ever imagined. And I realized—" "What?" "I realized I was falling for the woman you were becoming. Not Lucia's ghost. Not some replacement. You, Clara Moretti. The woman who should have walked away but didn't. The woman who faced her demons and won." Clara's breath caught. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not?" "It's true. Because you're still using me. Because I'm still part of your game. Because I don't know if anything between us is real or just." Luciano kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't asking permission. It was desperate and raw and tasted like smoke and whiskey and years of grief. Clara should have pushed him away. Should have demanded answers and explanations and guarantees she'd never get. Instead, she kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luciano rested his forehead against hers. "That's real," he whispered. "Whatever else is complicated or messy or wrong, that's real." Clara wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But when she pulled back, when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her blood run cold. On his desk, partially hidden under papers, was a photograph. Not of Lucia, of someone else. A woman Clara didn't recognize, blonde, hard-eyed, dangerous-looking. And written across the bottom in Luciano's handwriting, "Next." Clara's heart stopped. "Who is that?" Luciano followed her gaze and went very still. "Luciano, who is that woman?" He was quiet for too long. When he finally spoke, his voice was empty. "Someone who hurt Lucia. Someone who helped orchestrate her death. And you're going after her next." "Yes." Clara stepped back, understanding flooding through her like ice water. "This isn't over. The revenge, the lies, the manipulation. You're not done." "Clara, how many people are on your list? How many lives are you planning to destroy?" "As many as it takes." She laughed, and it sounded broken. "And me? Am I just another piece on your chessboard? Another tool for your revenge?" "No, you're. I can't do this." Clara moved toward the door, vision blurring. "I can't be part of whatever this is anymore." "Clara, wait." But she was already gone, running through corridors and out into the night, into a world that suddenly felt too big and too small at the same time. Behind her, in his study, Luciano stood alone among the shadows and realized what he'd done. He'd saved her, protected her, given her everything she needed to thrive. And in doing so, he'd lost her completely. Have you ever fallen for someone who was both your salvation and your destruction, and realized too late you couldn't tell the difference? Clara didn't go home that night. She walked for hours through streets she barely recognized, replaying everything in her head until the thoughts blurred together into one awful truth. She'd been a fool, not because she'd trusted Luciano, though that was part of it, but because she'd let herself believe that revenge could ever look like justice, that destruction could ever feel like healing. By the time the sun came up, she was sitting on a bench in Riverside Park, watching joggers and dog walkers start their ordinary days. People who weren't tangled up in mafia bosses and dead wives and photographs of the next target. Her phone had been buzzing all night. Luciano, Rachel, unknown numbers that were probably reporters. She'd ignored them all, until one text came through that made her fingers freeze on the screen. "We need to talk. Coffee? Elora." Clara stared at the message for a full minute. Every rational part of her brain screamed to delete it, block the number, pretend she'd never seen it. But something else whispered that maybe, just maybe, she needed to hear what Elora had to say. She typed back, "Where?" The response was immediate. "Greystone Cafe. 1 hour. Come alone." Clara almost laughed. Come alone, like this was some kind of spy movie. Like Elora hadn't already tried to destroy her life once this week. But she went anyway. The cafe was small, tucked into a corner near the university. Elora sat at a back table, looking nothing like the polished society princess Clara remembered. Her hair was pulled back messily. No makeup, clothes that looked slept in. She looked human. Breakable. Clara slid into the seat across from her, arms crossed. "You have 5 minutes." Elora's laugh was bitter. Right to the point. "I always hated that about you. How honest you were. Made the rest of us look like frauds." "What do you want, Elora?" "To warn you." Elora leaned forward, voice dropping. "About Luciano Varelli. About what he really is." Clara's jaw tightened. "I know what he is." "Do you? Do you know that his wife didn't die in an accident? That she was murdered by people he'd made enemies of?" Elora's eyes were fever bright. "Do you know that he spent 5 years systematically destroying everyone even remotely connected to her death? Not just my family, Clara. Dozens of families, businesses, lives. Your family committed fraud. They deserved. Yes, we committed fraud. We deserved to face consequences." Elora's voice cracked. But Luciano didn't just want justice. He wanted annihilation. He didn't just turn us in. He made sure we'd lose everything. Our home. Our reputation. My mother's in the hospital because the stress gave her a stroke. Clara felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're next." Elora pulled out her phone, slid it across the table. On the screen was a photograph. Clara and Luciano on the balcony at the gala, his hand on her face the moment before he'd kissed her. Except it wasn't from that night. The angle was wrong. The lighting different. Someone had been watching them. Documenting them. "There are people who want Luciano dead," Elora said quietly. "People he's destroyed who've been planning their own revenge. And they think you're his weakness. His soft spot. The one thing they can use to hurt him." Clara's hands went cold. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Then explain the car that's been parked outside your apartment for the past 3 days. The man in the gray suit who follows you to work every morning. The phone calls to your mother that hang up when she answers." Clara's breath stopped. Her mother. She hadn't talked to her mother in weeks, too caught up in everything happening. "Why would you warn me?" Clara demanded. "Why would you care what happens to me?" Elora's smile was sad and sharp. "Because despite everything, despite Darren, despite the humiliation, despite all of it, you never deserved to be caught in the middle of a war. And because," she stopped looking away, "because I was jealous of you. Always. You had something real, something honest, and I hated you for it." "That's not an answer." "No, but it's the truth." Elora stood, leaving her coffee untouched. "Do whatever you want with this information. Stay with Luciano and become a target. Or walk away while you still can. But don't say you weren't warned." She was gone before Clara could respond, disappearing into the morning crowd like smoke. Clara sat alone with Elora's phone still on the table, the photograph staring up at her. She picked it up with shaking hands and scrolled. There were more. Dozens more. Clara entering the foundation. Clara at the grocery store. Clara walking alone at night. Someone had been watching her for weeks. Her phone rang. Luciano. This time, she answered. "Where are you?" His voice was tight with worry. "You've been gone all night." "I've been." "Who's watching me?" Clara cut him off. "Who's been following me and photographing me and calling my mother?" Silence. Long and damning. "Luciano." "Who?" "His name is Victor Kozlov." The words came out heavy. He was an associate of Lucia's killers. When I started taking them down, he went underground. But he's been surfacing lately, making threats, trying to rebuild. And you didn't think to tell me this? Clara's voice shook with fury. You didn't think I had a right to know that I was in danger? I have people protecting you. Round-the-clock security. You were never at risk. That's not the point. She was shouting now, and people were staring, but she didn't care. The point is you used me, put me in the spotlight, made me a target, and you never once asked if that was okay. I was trying to protect you by making me bait. Clara laughed. It sounded broken. By turning me into just another piece in your game? It's not a game. These people, Clara, you don't understand what they're capable of. Then help me understand. Tell me the truth. All of it. She was crying now, hot, angry tears that wouldn't stop. Who was the woman in the photograph? The one marked next? Luciano was quiet for so long Clara thought he'd hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. Her name is Natasha Volkov. She was there the night Lucia died. She helped plan it. And yes, I'm going after her next. And after her? Who's next after that? How many people are on your list, Luciano? How many lives do you need to destroy before you feel like you've won? I don't know. The admission hung between them like broken glass. I don't know if there's ever an end to this. Clara closed her eyes. Then I can't be part of it. Clara, I need to go. I need to think. Wait. His voice cracked. Stay safe. Please. Let my people keep watching you. I can't. If something happened to you because of me, you should have thought of that before you made me a target. Clara hung up before he could respond, before she could hear the pain in his voice and let it change her mind. She sat in the cafe for another hour, staring at nothing, trying to figure out who she was without Luciano Varelli's shadow hanging over her. By the time she left, she'd made a decision. If she was going to be part of this war, it would be on her terms. Not as Luciano's pawn, not as anyone's victim, but as herself, Clara Moretti, the woman who'd survived humiliation and heartbreak and come out stronger. The woman who was about to take control of her own story. She pulled out her phone and made a call she'd been avoiding for weeks. Mom, it's me. I need to come home, and I need to tell you everything. Because if Clara had learned anything from Luciano, it was this: secrets were weapons. And she was done being the only one without ammunition. Do two broken souls heal each other? Or do they just create more wreckage? The answer was coming, and it would change everything. Clara's mother lived in a small house on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled like vanilla and old photographs. Maria Moretti opened the door before Clara could knock, pulled her daughter inside, and held her while Clara cried. Tell me, Maria said when the tears finally stopped. Tell me everything. So Clara did. The blind date, Luciano, the revenge, the lies and photographs and whispered threats. All of it spilling out in a confession that felt like bleeding. When she finished, Maria was quiet for a long time. Then she stood, walked to an old cabinet, and pulled out a photograph Clara had never seen before. A young woman with dark eyes and a bright smile, standing next to a man who looked like danger wrapped in charm. Your father, Maria said softly, before he became sick, before everything fell apart. Clara stared. I don't understand. He worked for dangerous people once, made choices he regretted, spent years trying to make up for them. Maria's voice was steady but sad. He understood revenge, Clara, understood how it eats you from the inside. And he told me once that the only way to survive it was to choose something bigger. Something bigger than what? Than the hurt, than the anger, than the need to watch someone else suffer. Maria took Clara's hands. You have a choice now. You can keep playing Luciano's game. Keep being his weapon or his weakness or whatever role he's written for you. Or you can write your own ending. Ow! By being the person those kids at the foundation see. The woman who helps people rebuild instead of burning everything down. Clara thought about the teenagers she'd been working with. The girl who'd aged out of foster care and was terrified of being homeless. The boy who'd never had anyone show up to his court dates until Clara did. The quiet victories that didn't make headlines but changed lives. I don't know if I'm strong enough, Clara whispered. You sat in that restaurant with $5 and didn't break. You faced your betrayers and didn't crumble. You survived a man who could have destroyed you and came out whole. Maria squeezed her hands. You're stronger than you think. Clara spent 3 days at her mother's house, sleeping in her childhood bed, eating comfort food, and slowly remembering who she'd been before Luciano Varelli walked into her life. On the 4th day, she made a call. Rachel, it's Clara. I need your help with something. 2 hours later, she was sitting in a conference room at the foundation with Rachel and 3 lawyers Luciano didn't know about. I want to separate myself from Mr. Varelli's operations, Clara said, publicly and legally. I want to stay at the foundation, but I need everyone to know I'm here on my own merit. Not as his charity case. Not as his trophy. As myself. Rachel nodded slowly. That's going to be complicated. He funds the foundation. His name is on everything. I know, but there are other donors. Other funding sources. We could diversify. Build something that stands on its own. Clara leaned forward. I'm not trying to hurt him or the foundation. I'm trying to save both. The lawyers exchanged glances. One of them, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, spoke up. Mr. Varelli isn't going to like this. I know. He could make things difficult for you. Let him try. Clara's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. I've survived worse than difficult. The press release went out that afternoon. Clara Moretti was stepping into a more independent role at the foundation, establishing her own reputation, building her own legacy. It was professional, diplomatic, and absolutely a middle finger to Luciano's control. He called within minutes. What are you doing? His voice was dangerous and hurt and confused all at once. Taking back my life. Clara, you don't understand the danger. I understand perfectly, which is why I've hired my own security. Made my own arrangements. I'm done being protected like I'm fragile. She paused. I'm done being anyone's second chance. That's not what you are, isn't it? You saved me because I reminded you of her. You used me to get revenge. You made me a target in a war I never signed up for. Clara's voice cracked. And maybe you did fall for me somewhere along the way. But I need to know who I am when I'm not standing in your shadow. Luciano was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft and broken. What if I told you I'd stop? What if I walked away from the revenge? From Natasha and Victor and all of it? Clara's heart clenched. I'd say you're lying to yourself. This isn't something you can just walk away from. I could try. For you. No. The word was firm. Don't do it for me. That's just another version of the same problem. Do it for yourself, if you're going to do it all. And us. Clara closed her eyes. I don't know if there's an us. Not right now. Not until I figure out who I am without you. She could hear him breathing on the other end. Could imagine him in his study, surrounded by photographs and plans and ghosts. I'm sorry, Luciano said finally. For all of it. For using you. For putting you in danger. For not being honest when I should have been. I know. Clara's voice was gentle. But sorry doesn't fix this. What would? Time. Space. And me deciding if I can forgive you. She hung up before he could respond, before the sound of his pain could make her change her mind. That evening, Clara went back to the foundation. Most of the staff had gone home, but the lights were still on in the youth center. She found Marcus, a 17-year-old who'd been in the program for 6 months, sitting alone, staring at college acceptance letters like they were written in a foreign language. You got in, Clara said, sitting beside him. Yeah. Marcus's voice was flat. Got in. No idea how to pay for it. We'll figure it out. Financial aid. Scholarships. Work study. There's always a way. Is there? He looked at her, and his eyes were old in a young face. Or is that just something people say to make kids like me feel better? Clara thought about sitting in a restaurant with $5. About being told she wasn't worth showing up for. About all the ways the world tried to convince people they were disposable. No, she said firmly. There's always a way. It might be hard. It might take longer than you want. But there's always a way forward. Marcus studied her. You really believe that? I have to. Because if I don't, then everything I've survived doesn't mean anything. He nodded slowly. Okay, then let's figure it out. They spent the next 2 hours mapping out scholarship applications and grant opportunities. By the time Marcus left, he was smiling, not a big smile, but real. Clara locked up and walked to her car, exhausted but somehow lighter. This was what mattered. Not revenge. Not power. Not even love. Just showing up for people who needed someone to believe in them. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Touching, but naive. You really think you can walk away from all this? Viktor Kozlov. Clara's blood went cold. She looked around the parking lot. suddenly aware of every shadow, every movement. Then her phone rang. Rachel. Clara. Are you still at the office? Yes, why? Get out. Now. Security just called. Someone bypassed the cameras. They think. The line went dead. Clara's hands shook as she fumbled for her keys. Behind her, footsteps echoed across the pavement. Slow. Deliberate. She turned. A woman stood 10 feet away, blonde hair pulled back, eyes like winter. The woman from the photograph on Luciano's desk. Natasha Volkov. Hello, Clara. Her accent was thick, Russian, dangerous. We need to talk. Clara's heart hammered. About what? About the man you love. About the war he started. And about how you're going to help me end it. Ever met someone who saw through every defense you had and knew exactly how to destroy you? Clara just did. Clara didn't run. Every instinct screamed at her to sprint for her car, to scream for help, to do anything except stand there facing a woman who'd helped murder Luciano's wife. But running wouldn't save her. Not from this. I'm not helping you do anything, Clara said, voice steadier than she felt. Natasha smiled. It was a beautiful smile. Terrifying. You already are, sweetheart. Just by existing. Just by being the thing Luciano Varelli cares about. He'll kill you if you touch me. He'll try. But see, that's the problem with men like Luciano. They think revenge is a straight line. You hurt them, they hurt you back. Everyone goes home satisfied. Natasha took a step closer. But revenge is a circle. It just keeps spinning. And eventually, everyone gets dizzy and falls down. Clara's phone was in her pocket. If she could just reach it, call someone. Don't. Natasha's voice was sharp. I'm not here to hurt you. Not yet. I'm here to make you an offer. What kind of offer? The kind that saves your life. And his. Natasha pulled out her own phone, pulled up a video. Watch. Clara didn't want to, but Natasha's finger hovered over the play button with the casual certainty of someone holding all the cards. The video showed Luciano, not in his study or his estate, but somewhere dark and industrial. A warehouse, maybe. He was talking to someone Clara couldn't see, and the audio was grainy, but she caught enough. In this, all of it. Natasha, Victor, everyone on the list. By the end of the month, they'll all be dead or in prison. And the girl. The other voice asked, Miss Moretti? She's out of it. Protected. Whatever happens to me, but she stays clean. Clara's chest tightened. Natasha clicked off the video. He recorded that 3 days ago. After you left him. After you told him you needed space. Her smile turned sad. He's planning to finish his revenge and die in the process. Sacrifice himself so you can have a normal life. Very romantic. Very stupid. You're lying. Am I? Then explain why he's transferred all his assets into a trust with you as the sole beneficiary. Explain why he's been meeting with prosecutors, offering testimony that will put him in prison for conspiracy and murder. Natasha's eyes glittered. He's wrapping up loose ends, Clara, getting ready to exit the story. Clara felt like she was drowning. What do you want from me? Stop him. Natasha said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Go to him. Tell him to walk away from the revenge. From the war. From all of it. Why would you want that? Aren't you on his list? Oh, sweetheart. I'm at the top of his list. But here's the thing. I don't want to kill Luciano Varelli. I never did. Natasha's mask cracked slightly, showing something raw underneath. Lucia was my friend. My only friend. And when she died, when Luciano started his crusade, I understood it. I'd have done the same. Then why are you threatening me? Because Victor isn't like me. Victor wants blood, and he's got enough men and money to take Luciano down, but only if Luciano keeps playing. If Luciano walks away, Victor loses his leverage. The war ends. Natasha stepped closer. You want to save him? Convince him to stop. Choose you over revenge. Choose life over death. And if I can't, then we all die. Him. Me. Victor. You. Everyone caught in the blast radius. Natasha's voice softened. I've spent 5 years running from this war. I'm tired, Clara. I just want it to be over. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The real reason Lucia died? It wasn't because of Luciano's enemies. It was because of his allies. Clara's blood went cold. What? Ask him about Marco Tesoro, about the deal he made that got Lucia killed, about the truth he's been hiding from everyone, including himself. Natasha disappeared into the shadows. You want to save him? Make him face what he's been running from. Then she was gone, leaving Clara alone in the parking lot with more questions than answers. Clara drove straight to Luciano's estate. The guard tried to stop her, but she pushed past them, ran through corridors she'd memorized, burst into his study without knocking. He was there, standing by the fireplace, looking older than he had just days ago. Clara. He said her name like a prayer. What are you? Is it true? She was breathing hard, trembling. Are you planning to get yourself killed? His face went carefully blank. Who told you that? Natasha Volkov. In the Foundation parking lot. 20 minutes ago. Clara crossed the room, grabbed his arms. Is it true? Luciano closed his eyes. Yes. The word hit like a bullet. Why? Clara's voice broke. Why would you do that? Because it's the only way this ends. The only way you're safe. The only way I stop being the monster I've become. He pulled away, moved to his desk. I've done terrible things, Clara. Not just to the people on my list, but to innocent people caught in the crossfire. I've destroyed lives. Families. And I told myself it was justice, but it was just revenge. Yes. He laughed bitterly. Revenge dressed up in noble clothes. And now it's time to pay for that. Clara felt tears burning her eyes. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to play martyr and pretend it's heroic. Then what do I do? Keep going? Keep destroying people until there's nothing left. Luciano turned to face her. I love you, Clara. And that means I can't let you be part of this anymore. That's not love. That's cowardice. The words came out harsh, but Clara meant them. Love means trusting me to make my own choices. Love means being honest even when it hurts. Love means fighting for a future together, not planning your death like it's some grand finale. I don't know how to stop. Then learn. Clara moved closer, cupped his face with both hands. Tell me the truth. All of it. About Marco Tesoro. About what really happened to Lucia. About everything you've been hiding. Luciano's eyes filled with something that might have been relief. Or terror. If I tell you, you'll hate me. Maybe, but at least it'll be honest. Clara's voice was steel and silk. And I'd rather hate you for the truth than love you for a lie. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, sat down, and started talking. Marco Tesoro was my business partner. My friend. Or so I thought. We had a deal going, importing art perfectly legal. Except Marco was using the shipments to move something else. Weapons. Drugs. I didn't know until it was too late. Clara listened, barely breathing. When I found out, I confronted him, threatened to go to the police. And Marco, Luciano's voice cracked. Marco told me if I said anything, he'd hurt Lucia. I didn't believe him. Thought it was an empty threat. So I went to the police anyway. And he killed her. Yes, made it look like an accident. But it was my fault. My choice that got her killed. Luciano looked up, and his eyes were destroyed. I've been hunting everyone connected to Marco ever since. Telling myself it was justice. But really, I was just trying to outrun my own guilt. Clara sank onto the couch, mind reeling. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I was ashamed. Because admitting it meant admitting I was the reason she died. That all my revenge was just me punishing everyone except the person who deserved it most, myself. They sat in silence for a long time. The fire crackled. Outside, the world kept spinning. Finally, Clara spoke. What happened to Marco? Dead. 2 years ago. Heart attack. Luciano laughed bitterly. Natural causes. The universe's last joke on me. So all of this, everything you've done since, it's been pointless. Hurting people who were just connected to a man who's already dead. Yes. Clara stood, walked to the window, looked out at gardens that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. You were right, she said quietly. I do hate you right now. For lying. For using me. For planning to throw your life away like it doesn't matter. Luciano said nothing. But I also understand. Because I've wanted to hurt people too. Wanted revenge on Darren and Alora and everyone who made me feel small. And you gave me that. She turned to look at him. The difference is, I found something better. Something real. Those kids at the foundation. The work we're doing. Building instead of destroying. What are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice. You can keep playing out this tragic ending you've written for yourself, or you can do the harder thing. Clara's voice was strong and clear. You can forgive yourself. Walk away from the revenge. Use your power and money and connections to actually help people instead of hunting them. It's not that simple. It never is. But it's possible. She crossed him, held out her hand. Come with me. Tomorrow. To the foundation. Meet the kids you've been helping without even knowing it. See what your money can do when it's used for building instead of destroying. Luciano stared at her hand like it was a lifeline he didn't deserve. And if I can't? If I'm too broken to be fixed? Then at least you'll have tried. At least you'll have chosen something other than death. Clara's voice softened. Please, Luciano. Choose life. Choose us. Choose to be better. He took her hand, held it like he was drowning. I'll try, he whispered. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. Clara pulled him to his feet, into her arms, and held him while he shook with everything he'd been carrying for 5 years. Outside, in the shadows of the estate, Viktor Kozlov lowered his binoculars and smiled. The game was changing, and he was ready to play. Can someone who's built their entire identity on revenge learn to be something else? Or is that just another kind of death? The news broke on a gray Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Clara and Luciano's conversation in his study. Varelli Foundation announces major expansion. Focus on restorative justice and community healing. Clara stood in the foundation's lobby, watching staff members read the press release on their phones. Some looked excited, others confused. All of them had questions. Rachel appeared at her elbow. He really did it. He's stepping back from everything. Not everything, Clara corrected. Just the revenge, the violence, the war. And Viktor Kozlov? Clara's jaw tightened. Viktor had gone quiet in recent weeks. Too quiet, like a predator watching from tall grass, waiting for the right moment to strike. We're handling it, Clara said, more confident than she felt. The truth was messy, eh? Luciano had spent the past 3 weeks meeting with federal prosecutors, offering testimony against people he'd once called allies, turning over evidence of crimes. Not his manufactured revenge plots, but real, documented corruption, money laundering, human trafficking, the ugly underbelly of the world he'd been part of. He was trying, actually trying, to be better, to choose differently. But choosing light didn't make the darkness disappear. It just meant you could see the monsters more clearly. That evening, Clara found Luciano in the Foundation's community center, surrounded by a half-dozen teenagers. He was teaching them chess, something he'd started doing twice a week, awkward at first, but slowly getting more comfortable. That's checkmate, Marcus said, grinning as he moved his queen. You walked right into it. Luciano studied the board, then laughed, a real laugh, not the dangerous, almost smile Clara had first seen in that restaurant. I did. Well played. The kids packed up and left, calling goodbyes, and Clara waited until they were alone. You're good at this, she said. At losing chess games to teenagers? At showing up. At being present. At letting yourself be human. Clara sat beside him. I'm proud of you. Luciano's expression shifted, vulnerable and uncertain. Don't be proud yet. I'm still, he stopped. There are things I did, Clara. Things I haven't told you about. Things that keep me up at night. I know, and you're still here. I'm still here. She took his hand. Not because I think you're perfect, or because I've forgiven everything, but because I've seen you try to change. And that matters. He squeezed her hand, and for a moment, everything felt almost normal, almost peaceful. Then Clara's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Hello. Miss Moretti. The voice was smooth, accented, dangerous. Viktor Kozlov. We need to meet. I don't think so. Oh, but you will. Because I have something you want. Someone actually. There was a pause. Little Marcus. Sweet kid. Smart. Be ashamed if something happened to him. Clara's blood turned to ice. She looked at Luciano, whose expression had gone deadly. Put it on speaker, he said quietly. Clara did. Viktor, Luciano's voice was steel. Let the boy go. This is between you and me. No, my friend. This stopped being between us the moment you decided to play hero. The moment you chose her over the war. Viktor's laugh was cold. You think you could just walk away? Testify against my associates and face no consequences? That's not how this works. What do you want? Simple. You. Tonight. Alone. The old Riverside warehouse. You know the one where Marco Tesoro used to run his operations. Poetic, don't you think? And if I don't come, then the boy dies, and I move on to someone else. Maybe Clara's mother. Maybe Rachel from the foundation. Maybe everyone you've tried to protect by pretending to be a good man. Victor's voice dropped. You can't wash blood off your hands by helping people, Luciano. It just means more people bleed when you fail. The line went dead. Luciano was already moving, pulling out his phone, calling security. But Clara saw the truth in his eyes. He was going. Alone. Even if it meant dying. No, Clara said. You're not doing this. We call the police. We handle this the right way. The police can't stop Victor. And by the time they organize a rescue, Marcus will be dead. Luciano's voice was calm, but his hands shook. I have to go. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. It's not a request. Clara grabbed her jacket. You don't get to play martyr. You don't get to sacrifice yourself and call it redemption. We do this together or not at all. They stared at each other. All the history, all the pain, all the impossible choices hanging between them. Why? Luciano asked finally. Why would you risk yourself for this? Because those kids matter. Because Marcus matters. Because you matter. Clara's voice was fierce. And because I'm done watching people I care about face their demons alone. Luciano closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were clear, decided. Okay, together. But we do it smart. We bring backup. We plan for every contingency. And if it goes wrong, if there's any chance you're in danger, you run. Promise me. I promise. Clara lied. Because they both knew if it came down to it, neither of them would run. They'd stand and fight. Together. They spent the next hour planning. Calling contacts Luciano had made during his years of revenge. People who owed him favors, who believed in second chances, who understood that sometimes justice meant getting your hands dirty. By the time they left for the warehouse, they had a team of 6. Professionals. Silent. Dangerous in ways Victor wouldn't see coming. The warehouse sat on the edge of the river, abandoned for years, windows broken like missing teeth. Clara's heart hammered as they approached, staying low, using shadows. Inside, a single light burned. Marcus sat tied to a chair in the center, terrified but alive. Victor stood behind him, gun pressed to the boy's head. Luciano. Victor's voice echoed through the empty space. So glad you could make it. And you brought friends. How disappointing. I specifically said alone. You have what you want. Let the boy go. Oh, but that's not what I want anymore. Victor's smile was visible even from a distance. What I want is to watch you understand that you can't escape this. That revenge is a circle, remember? And now it's come back around. He pulled the trigger, but the gun clicked empty. Marcus, hands free, dove away. And suddenly, the warehouse exploded with movement. Luciano's team, federal agents, people Victor hadn't accounted for. In the chaos, Clara saw Victor reach for another weapon, saw him aim it at Luciano, saw the moment stretch into something slow and crystalline. She moved without thinking, threw herself forward, screamed Luciano's name. The shot rang out, but it wasn't Clara who fell. It was Natasha Volkov, stepping from the shadows where she'd been hiding, taking the bullet meant for Luciano with a grace that looked almost peaceful. She crumpled to the concrete, blonde hair spreading like a halo. Victor's face went white. Natasha. It's over, Natasha whispered, blood spreading across her chest. Let it be over. The federal agents swarmed Victor before he could fire again. Tackled him. Cuffed him. Read him rights, he stopped listening to halfway through. Clara ran to Natasha, pressed hands to the wound, tried to stop the bleeding. Luciano appeared beside her, face destroyed. Why, he asked. Why would you do that? Natasha smiled, and it was sad and beautiful and final. Because Lucia would have wanted me to. Because 5 years of running was enough. Because, she coughed, blood on her lips. Because maybe redemption looks like this. One last choice that actually matters. You're going to be fine, Clara lied, even as sirens wailed in the distance. Help is coming. No. Natasha's hand found Clara's. But that's okay. I am tired. And you take care of him. He's worth saving, even if he doesn't believe it. Her eyes closed. Her breathing stopped. And just like that, Natasha Volkov was gone. The paramedics arrived. The police. The questions. Clara and Luciano gave statements that would take hours to process. Marcus was checked over, reunited with his foster family, shaking but safe. By the time they left the warehouse, the sun was rising over the river, turning everything gold. Luciano stood at the edge of the water, staring at nothing. Clara joined him, slipping her hand into his. "She saved you," Clara said quietly. "She shouldn't have had to." His voice was raw. "This is my fault. All of it. If I just let it go years ago. If you let it go, Victor would still be out there. Marcus might still be in danger. The people you testified against would still be hurting innocents." Clara turned him to face her. What happened tonight was tragic, but it was also Victor's choice. Natasha's choice. Not yours. I don't know how to live with this. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One act of showing up and being better. She squeezed his hand. That's all any of us can do. They stood there for a long time, watching the water, feeling the weight of everything that had happened and everything that still needed to happen. Finally, Luciano spoke. "I'm testifying. Against everyone. Every corrupt official. Every criminal I dealt with. Every person I enabled while I was chasing revenge. I'm burning it all down the right way this time. That's going to take years. Trials. Threats. You'll be in danger. I know." He looked at her. "And I know I have no right to ask this. After everything I've put you through." But he stopped, searching for words. "Will you stand with me? Not as my possession or my second chance, but as my partner, my equal, the woman who made me want to be better." Clara thought about the girl who'd sat in a restaurant with $5, about the woman she'd become, scarred and strong and still learning how to be brave. "On one condition," she said. "Anything. You stop trying to protect me from everything. You trust me to make my own choices, even the dangerous ones, even the ones that scare you." Her voice was firm. "I'm not yours, Luciano, but I'm with you, and there's a difference." He smiled, that real smile she'd learned to love. "Deal? Then yes, I'll stand with you, through the trials and the threats and whatever comes next." Clara paused. "But we're doing it my way, building instead of destroying, healing instead of hurting. Your way sounds better than mine ever did." They walked back to the car as the city woke up around them. Somewhere, prosecutors were preparing cases. Journalists were writing headlines. Lives were continuing in the messy, complicated way they always did. But for Clara and Luciano, this was something else. This was a beginning. Not a perfect one, not a simple one, but theirs. And maybe that was enough. Can someone who spent years destroying find redemption in building? Or is that just another kind of revenge? Clara was about to find out. 6 months later, Clara stood in front of a restaurant. The same restaurant where everything had started, where she'd sat with $5 and a broken heart, waiting for someone who would never show up. The city looked different now, or maybe she looked different. It was hard to tell. She checked her phone. 7 o'clock. Right on time. The door opened, and Luciano stepped out. Not in one of his tailored suits, but jeans and a sweater, looking almost normal. Almost like someone who hadn't spent years hunting ghosts. "You came," he said. "You asked." Clara smiled. "Besides, I owed this place a better memory." They went inside. The same white tablecloths. The same ambient lighting. But a different table this time. One by the window, where they could watch the world go by instead of hiding from it. The waiter appeared. The same one who'd looked at Clara with pity all those months ago. He didn't recognize her at first. Why would he? She carried herself differently now. Head high, eyes clear, like someone who knew her own worth. "What can I get you?" he asked. "The tasting menu," Luciano said. "For two." "Excellent choice, sir." When they were alone, Clara reached across the table and took Luciano's hand. His fingers were warm, solid, real. "How was court?" she asked. "Long, exhausting, but good." He smiled tiredly. 3 more convictions. The prosecutor said my testimony was crucial, that we're actually making a difference. We are making a difference. I saw it this week at the foundation. 5 kids got college acceptances. 2 got job offers. Marcus is interning at a law firm. Says he wants to be a prosecutor now. Clara laughed. Can you believe that? After everything he's been through? Yes. Trauma either breaks you or makes you want to fix the world. Luciano's expression softened. You taught me that. The food came. Course after course of things that tasted like hope and possibility. They talked about ordinary things, foundation programs, Rachel's upcoming wedding, Clara's mother's new book club. Small, beautiful, mundane details that felt revolutionary after everything they'd survived. Halfway through dessert, Clara felt it. The shift. The moment she'd been both dreading and anticipating for months. I need to tell you something, she said. Luciano went still. Okay, I've been offered a position. Director of a new program working with domestic violence survivors. Building shelters. Providing legal aid. Everything I've learned at the foundation, but on a bigger scale. She paused. It's in Boston. The silence stretched. That's amazing, Luciano said finally. You'd be incredible at that. It would mean leaving. The foundation. The city. You. I know. Clara searched his face for anger or hurt or the possessive darkness that used to live there. But all she saw was love and understanding and something that looked like pride. Are you going to ask me to stay? She asked quietly. No. Luciano squeezed her hand. Because that would be me trying to control you again. Try to make you fit into my story instead of writing your own. He smiled. It was sad but genuine. You deserve this, Clara. You've earned it. And I won't be the thing that holds you back. Tears burned Clara's eyes. What if I want you to fight for me? What if I want you to say you'll miss me? I will miss you. Every single day. You're the best thing that's happened to me in 5 years. Maybe ever. His voice cracked. But I also love you enough to let you go. To let you become whoever you're meant to be. Even if it's not with me. Clara looked at him. This man who'd saved her and used her and nearly destroyed them both. This man who'd learned to choose healing over revenge. This man who was finally, painfully, becoming someone better. I'm not taking the job, she said. Luciano's eyes widened. What? Clara, you have to. I'm not taking it because I already turned it down. 2 weeks ago. She smiled through her tears. Because I realized something. I don't need to run away to become who I'm meant to be. I'm already becoming her. Here. With you. With the work we're doing. But the opportunity will come again. In a different form. When I'm ready. Clara leaned forward. Right now, I want to be here. Building something with you. Not because I'm yours. But because I choose you. Every day. Consciously. Freely. Luciano stared at her like she'd just rewritten the laws of physics. You're sure? I'm sure. Are you? Am I sure about what? About us. About building a future instead of running from the past. About being partners instead of savior and saved. Clara's voice was steady. Because that's what I'm offering. Not a fairy tale. Not some perfect ending. Just two broken people choosing to heal together. Luciano stood, walked around the table, and pulled Clara to her feet. He cupped her face with both hands, and when he kissed her, it tasted like promises and possibility. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. I'm sure, he whispered, more sure than I've been about anything in my life. They stood there in the middle of the restaurant, holding each other, while diners smiled and looked away and gave them the moment they needed. Outside, the city glittered with a million lights, a million stories, a million people trying to figure out how to survive and thrive and become something more than their worst moments. Clara thought about the girl she'd been, small and scared and convinced she was disposable. She thought about the woman she'd become, strong and fierce and still learning but trying. And she thought about the future stretching out ahead of them like an unwritten page, full of potential, full of danger, full of the messy, complicated beauty of two people choosing each other despite everything. From now on, Clara said quietly, I'm mine. Yes, you are. Luciano smiled. But you're also, if you want to be ours. We're ours. Together. I like the sound of that. They paid the bill, not with $5 this time, but with a credit card that bore both their names. Partners in the foundation. Partners in life. Partners in the slow, difficult work of redemption. As they walked out into the night, Clara's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Got my first day ever. In constitutional law. Wanted you to know. Thanks for believing in me. Clara showed it to Luciano, and they both smiled. That's what matters, she said. Not the revenge. Not the destruction. This. Kids like Marcus getting their shot. People like us learning to be better. You're right. Luciano took her hand as they walked. Though I have to admit, part of me still wants to track down everyone who ever hurt you and make them pay. I know, but you won't. No, I won't. He squeezed her hand. Because you taught me something more powerful than revenge. What's that? That showing up for people, really showing up, is the best way to defeat the people who wrote them off. That building something good is harder than destroying something bad. And that love, real love, looks like letting someone be free while choosing to stand beside them anyway. Clara stopped walking, turned to face him under a streetlight. You know what? What? You're getting better at this. The whole being a good person thing. Luciano laughed, that real, genuine sound she'd learned to treasure. I have a good teacher. They walked home together through streets full of strangers and stories and second chances. And somewhere, in a restaurant they'd never go back to, a waiter cleaned a table where two broken souls had learned to heal. Sometimes life abandons you on purpose, not to break you, but to rebuild you into something stronger, something that knows its own worth, something that can't be destroyed by $5 or cruel text messages or people who mistake kindness for weakness. Sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. It's becoming so completely yourself that the people who tried to diminish you can't even recognize you anymore. And sometimes, just sometimes, the man who saves you teaches you the most important lesson, that you never needed saving in the first place. You just needed someone to remind you how strong you already were. Clara Moretti learned that lesson in a restaurant with $5 and a stranger who became something more. And she spent the rest of her life teaching it to others. One lost kid, one broken heart, one second chance at a time. Because that's what real power looks like. Not destruction, not revenge, just showing up, day after day, building instead of burning, healing instead of hurting, choosing to be yours, and ours, and exactly who you were always meant to be. From now on, she was mine, Clara whispered to herself, walking hand in hand with the man who'd learned to let her be free. And that was enough. That was everything. If this story moved you, if Clara's journey from humiliation to empowerment resonated with your own battles, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story of strength, survival, and quiet triumph. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your story might inspire someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to stay broken. Share this story with someone who needs that reminder. Until next time, remember, you're stronger than you think, braver than you know, and worthy of so much more than $5 and an empty chair.